The following is an excerpt from a conversation I had with my son April 12th, 2020. This is a segment of a much longer conversation. Here it is.
The thing that I want people to realize is that there's more going on than just at face value this virus. The push for vaccines, mandatory vaccinations, should
Now,
raise
is
everybody's
somebody pushing
eyebrows.
for that?
Bill Gates is.
Pushing for mandatory vaccinations?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Yes. I mean, I think he has a pretty clear track record of wanting to vaccinate everybody.
I know he wants to, but of course he does. But you mean legally mandated vaccinations?
Yes.
Where you have to go in and get your shot.
Seems
I've
like
never heard of this.
Well, it seems like a pretty logical place to go from here. Look at what happened. You have to have a complete economic meltdown, which is happening. You have to have a threat of a virus, something that a vaccine can be created, and everyone can be like, well, I don't want the economy to tank like it just did ever again. So if we have the possibility of taking some vaccine that will prevent this from happening again, then I'm going to sign myself up for it. See, that seems like a pretty straightforward A to B, B to C to me.
Okay.
And
There's
a lot
a
of people
couple of
want to
things
say
wrong
that's
with that.
conspiracy. Okay.
First
What's
of
wrong
all,
with it?
I want the vaccine, and I think probably if you polled people, most people would want to take the vaccine themselves. And if, as far as I know, you only need a certain percentage of the people to get a vaccine for it to pretty much slow down any outbreak. So I don't know what the number is, but it's like 60%. If 60% of the population gets the vaccine, it pretty, a viral spread can't go that far. I don't know if it's 60%, but it's some number. There's some number that they,
It's a herd
mathematically
immunity,
works
right?
out.
Isn't
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
the
So not
theory?
everybody
Yeah.
needs to be vaccinated. And I think most people would want to get a vaccination just because why would you want to get sick? I know a lot of people who get a flu shot every year, just because they don't want to be out of work for a week or two and suffering, why would you want that when you can just go in sometimes for free and get a vaccine, right? So, and for sure for things like measles or COVID-19, I don't want to get it. So I would want to get it. And I think most people would want to get the vaccine. So anyway, but the problem I have with the way that you put that is that it sounded like you're saying somebody has released this virus so that they could force everybody to get vaccines. And I just don't think there's a remote possibility that that's true.
No, that's not. That actually is not how I meant it. And
Okay.
I don't.
But that's what it sounds like when you present it that way. These are the conditions you'd have to have in order to control a population. That's what it sounds like you're saying.
What's that quote? Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
It's a perfect crisis to push forward something. I mean, these aren't old. I mean, Bill Gates has been talking about vaccines and pandemics for years now.
Yeah.
And it's not a new. It's not like this happened and then now all of a sudden he's pushing for vaccines. He's been pushing for vaccines for a very long time. I
just actually saw a thing today that was it was the guy. I think he's the head of Gavi, which is a group that they work with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they do vaccines around the world. And his reason he said the reason that Bill Gates likes vaccines so much is that although it takes a lot of work to create it, he said it's a lot like software. It takes a lot of work to create one, but once you have it, it's super cheap. You can produce bazillions of them. And literally the vaccines that they've given around the world have saved literally millions of lives. People that would have died of measles or smallpox or whatever. that didn't die because of these vaccines. So once you have the vaccine, it's super cheap. You can save someone's life. You can save millions of lives with one super cheap and easy thing. That's why he likes them so
Absolutely.
much.
Well, absolutely. And I have no problems with that perspective. What starts to raise my eyebrows and starts to make me question it is um, the industry in which it's created. First of all, the pharmaceutical industry. I don't have much trust in them,
Me neither.
and the fact that that a vaccine is protected from litigation.
What do you mean?
Meaning, if somebody takes a vaccine, somebody gets a vaccine, and then they have health complications, you can't sue the company that made that vaccine or gave you that vaccine or the hospital that administered that vaccine. You
I didn't know
can't.
that.
They are protected by law from litigation and
And
from
that's
being
just in the
sued,
US or
basically.
that's worldwide?
As far as I know, it's the US, because we're sue happy. So that's probably the main place they want to stop that. And that, I think, gave rise to a lot of the anti-vaxxers out there, and the people that were saying how it's causing autism and everything else. But but the very fact that they are protected and don't need to be, I mean, most pharmaceutical drugs, even as corrupt as the pharmaceutical companies are, have to go through a pretty rigorous amount of testing. And that's one of the things that vaccines take so long, typically.
Yeah,
To
they've
develop.
already created, I think something like 17 different companies have already created a vaccine for coronavirus, for COVID-19. What takes so long is, first of all, testing it, and then second of all, growing it. Like I was just reading about how you make a vaccine is you take the virus, you inject it in, or there's several ways to do it, but the main way that they do is they inject it into an egg, like a chicken egg, and then they let the virus grow in the chicken egg. I mean, you have to actually make the virus in order to get a vaccine. Then they somehow weaken it, and then they put it into a vaccine. So you have to test it first. That takes the longest, and then you have to manufacture it, grow it, until you have enough that you can put into, enough vaccines and then package them up and send them out. And, so there's a distribution of it, the growing of it, and then mainly the testing of it takes a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't
As it
know. You
should,
said
right?
something about pharmaceutical companies being corrupt. I don't know if I would call it corrupt. I'm sure there is corruption. There's a lot of money at stake. I know they have powerful lobbyists. I know they wield their money with Congress, like the oil company does, like anybody does that has the money. But I don't know. They do create miraculous medicines and have saved bazillions of lives. And
They also create opioid epidemics.
I don't know if I really don't know. I know that there are doctors that did that ignored the warnings on it and stuff like that. I don't know if the pharmaceutical companies, they probably had something to do with it, but
There's a lot of money. Anywhere there's a lot of money,
somebody's going to
I
be
would
corrupt. I would bet.
there's going to be a level of corruption that,
Yeah, but I don't know.
because there's
But I
just
don't know
too
if it's
much.
fair to say all pharmaceutical companies are corrupt.
Oh no, it's never fair to say all or never or none. It's not fair to
Well, it
say
is
that ever.
sometimes.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm sure there's
yeah.
a lot. I'm sure there's pharmaceutical companies out there that are actually trying. Like there's actually some CBD. I just read there's a CBD um, prescription medicine that was just FDA approved, which is awesome, and is no longer under the Schedule 1 category, which is a great progress. Like we need more pharmaceutical companies doing stuff like that.
I don't even know if that was is it a pharmaceutical derivative of CBD, or they just legalized CBD?
And no, I think it's a pharmaceutical derivative of CBD.
Hmm.
Um, I forgot the name of the prescription drug exactly. They always have these weird
Yeah.
names. Sound like
Xyloft or
yeah.
something. Zortax.
Yeah. Well, and so coming back to pharmaceutical companies, the idea that you can advertise now for pharmaceutical drugs should um, should be an indication that they are profit driven, right?
I have to say, the advertising had, so they used to, the pharmaceutical companies used to really schmooze doctors a lot. They would buy them, memberships to golf clubs, and they would send them on vacations, and they'd wine and dine
I
them
mean,
and
you
stuff
used
like
to.
that. Well, they don't do that anymore. It's actually illegal now. Congress, which I think is kind of funny, because Congress passed a law. They realized that pharmaceutical companies have way too much power over doctors, which would lead the doctor to prescribe it more, right? I mean, just if they were not sociopaths, they feel some obligation to this company that's schmoozing them like this, and so they would be more likely, or probably statistically more likely, give a prescription for that drug, right? So the Congress passed a law so that it limits how much money pharmaceutical companies can spend on doctors, and which I think is really funny because, and this is a whole other issue, and maybe we should do a podcast on this, but so clearly Congress understands the principle that if you're allowed to take money from somebody, you're likely to be influenced by that money, and that the doctor has an obligation to the patient, shouldn't have an obligation to the pharmaceutical company, right? Well, the same principle
Right.
should apply to Congress. Congress should not be allowed to take money from anybody, and yet they are allowed to take money from people. And Congress should be responding to the needs of their constituents, not to the people who are giving them money. But they haven't yet passed a law for themselves.
Amen to that. Well, and doesn't that just strike you to the hypocrisy, the level of hypocrisy that exists in that alone?
Yeah.
Saying that pharmaceutical companies are no longer allowed to basically bribe doctors,
Right.
but being passed by the very people that are being bribed by all kinds of corporations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Sure. That would be,
yeah.
it would
So
definitely be a
corruption.
harder one
Yeah.
to do. I mean, in all fairness, if you are a member of Congress, it would be easier to pass that doctor law, pharmaceutical law, than it would be to pass a law that basically all the people that have put you in office would no longer be able to have any influence over you. So you'd be screwing your money bags, by passing that law. I think it could, there's a way to get around this, and there's an organization called Represent.us that is directly attacking this problem and doing a really good job of it. But there is a way to get around it. Part of the way they do it is they start at the local level, as a lot of laws have done, like women getting the right to vote. They started at the local level and moved up into city, and then county, and then state, and so on. But another way to go about it is you can pass a law that doesn't go into effect for another 12 years or something. So I mean, you could do it that way, and it is entirely possible to do that. And of course, all of them, all of their supporters, financial supporters, might be really unhappy about that. So,
Well, didn't
like, the
they? I mean,
doctors
didn't they
didn't
also?
vote for that. You know what I mean? The doctors didn't vote for a law to prevent them from getting money from pharmaceutical companies.
Right. Right. Well, that's the funny thing is, like, so it wasn't that a big topic a few years ago about, and that's kind of where the super PACs and stuff came from for politicians running, was that they realized there was a big problem with, basically big corporations able to donate serious money to a
Really,
candidate.
unlimited amount of money. That was the problem, I think, with the super PACs, is like, I think there must be some limits, to how much money somebody can give to a congressman for their campaign. I'm not sure, but I think there must be some limits. I think that the super PACs kind of got around that, like an
Right. It was
independent
like a loophole,
organization.
basically.
Well, it's like basically they're saying, if like for example, if you personally wanted to endorse Bernie Sanders and you had a lot of money, you could put up a billboard that says vote for Bernie Sanders, right? Why should you be stopped from being able to
Right.
do that? I mean, and the Supreme Court said, look, that's free speech. It's your money. If you want to spend it on that, there's no constitutional limitation on that says that you shouldn't be able to do that. They said it's a matter of free speech, which you can understand that from that point of view, that is totally understandable, right? That's not too many people. I mean, you should, if you, in fact, you personally wanted to put up a billboard that endorsed Bernie Sanders, or put a fucking, bumper sticker on your car, you should be able to do that, you know?
Yeah.
But
Then when you start treating corporations like people, and corporations have vested interests, specifically financial interests, and they start putting up money, then it starts to get dirty.
well, there are people that are as wealthy as corporations, like Bill Gates, for example, that has, he has more money
Well,
than
from a
most
corporation.
corporations.
Right. And how did he get his money?
I know, but he owns the money. I mean, he has money himself, and a lot of the
Right.
people that are putting together these super PACs are just wealthy people, like the Koch brothers, right? So that
Well, but they
it
have
doesn't matter
vested
whether,
interest in corporations.
I know, but it doesn't matter whether it's the corporations putting up the money or the people putting up the money. There's a huge amount of money that can be put up. Unlimited amounts can be put up to support one candidate or another.
Oh, okay.
That's the
Yeah.
law,
Well,
right?
right. And then those rich people that have certain companies have, obviously, they want certain things done, whether it's going to benefit those companies that made them all their money, or their friends, that whatever laws they want passed that will benefit them monetarily. That's when it starts to get dirty, right?
Well, I mean, they could be doing it just because they think it'd be good for the country too, and that could be. I mean,
Well, yeah,
it's
everybody
all
could be
dirty. The
doing
fact,
everything just for the benefit,
yeah. But I don't
but
know.
that's not always the case.
I don't know how you could. I mean, I suppose it's possible to pass a law that would make it so that nobody could endorse a candidate. I don't know if they would, but what I
I
would
think they
like to see,
should.
I would like to see that the candidates themselves are not allowed to take any money from anybody. Because
I think that would do a lot.
if you're getting money directly from somebody, you know who it's coming from. You would be hard pressed not to feel you owed them a favor. I mean, a normal human being. I mean, it's a really, I mean, in the book Influence, which is basically this guy, tries to figure out what makes people agree to things. And one of the 6 principles he's got in there is reciprocity. And
Yeah.
that means it's such a fundamental element
Human
of the
instinct,
human
really.
psyche. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so fundamental that you people are manipulated with this thing. Like, the one of the examples they used was the old Hare Krishnas used to, they raised a huge amount of money they would have people in airports just handing people a flower, and then they would ask for money for a donation for the Hare Krishna Society. And they raised huge amounts of money and they would press the flower. They would almost make you take the flower,
Mm.
and a lot of people do that with mailings now too. They'll send you address labels, and then ask for money. And there's a really strong impulse to give back when somebody has given something to you, and
Absolutely.
if somebody has put you in
Look at the
power by
credit
giving you
system.
$180,000, and then they come 2 months later and say, can you do us a favor and not vote on this bill? A
Yeah.
normal human
Right.
being is going to be really feel obligated, anyway. So
Right. It would be unnatural for it to not be an influence.
Okay, like I said, that is an excerpt from a longer conversation between Ben Wagner and myself, Adam Lee Kahn. We had that conversation on April 12th, 2020. You can look it up and listen to the longer one if you'd like. This is Adam Lee Kahn on The Atom Bomb.